artificial intelligence and what's its importance from a social perspective?
It's always a difficulty to define terms like that, but in more general way, it's when we get the technology to do things that we normally expect people to do, and in a way that is rather similar to the way people are reasoning, things like that. And it's, of course, it will over the years become more and more important because we want to automate a lot of things, which means that we need to learn to live with that kind of technology around us. You could say that there are already examples of robots that have some kind of intelligence, things like that, and we have to interact. The people have to interact with that kind of technology. It also means that a lot of things will happen around us in the society that is very hard to understand. How does it work? We just see that it's happening, and that creates a huge challenge for education to help students to become aware of how these things works, what is governing them, and we also have to have a discussion, where do we want these kind of things in the society? We perhaps will also find places where we don't accept it. It doesn't make our lives better. It's sort of so it's an important issue from a sort of democratic point of view.
So in this context, what do you think will be the key skills to develop among children and young people, among students, to equip them with the necessary capabilities that they will need to face an artificial intelligence-led world?
I think it's very similar to what the last couple of years has defined as digital competence, which is one part is of course how to interact with digital tools and things like that, but more importantly, and what is unique for the schools to be able to do is to point out what's happening and equip them with skills, knowledge about how technology actually works. That's the reason why, for example, we in Sweden have programming as a part of the compulsory school. That is a way that you can actually understand what's happening behind the scene, behind the technology. And if you really need to know that sort of from a you need to have done things like that. You need to have done programming so that you really understand what is happening. You need to know a lot about algorithms, how they are constructed, their limitations and things like that. So there is a sort of long list that I still would say is under the umbrella of digital competence, which will equip you also for the artificial intelligence being a larger part of society.
You mentioned the introduction of programming in the Sweden curriculum.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how it is implemented in terms of curriculum design and the approach in teaching?
We spent some time on actually looking at other countries that have been doing that. We looked at England, Finland, and other countries, and had a long discussion whether it should be treated as something separate, as a new subject in schools, or if we should try to integrate it. So the answer we came up with was that let's integrate it, let it be part of the other subjects, and also be part of the sort of, you know, we have a number of things we expect all teachers to help students to develop, like cooperative skills, things like that, and that is also important when it comes to digital competence and programming. But we also wanted to make sure that it was clearly stated in some subjects what that subject should, how that subject should contribute to this competence. So we, you can say, there are, all subjects have the possibility of using programming as part of the actual teaching, but specifically math, and then we're talking mostly about algorithms and things like that, which are very related to math. And we even say that in the end of compulsory school, the students should be able to use programming in order to solve mathematical problems. So that is one subject that has faced real challenges because teachers are not used to teach this. Then we looked at the subject technology, which is more of this sort of small or large scale systems which are surrounding us. So it has a tradition of 20 years in the Swedish school system, looking at traffic, I mean, everything that you really need to understand about how society works. And there we found that these systems that are based on programs makes it natural to study all those things within technology. And in addition to that, you asked from the beginning here, the social effects of artificial intelligence, that would be a question for social science in compulsory school, where you study the impact of everything that happens around us in society, where artificial intelligence, of course, will be one important part.
How do you think education could be reshaped in a world led by artificial intelligence?
Now I think that could be addressed in two ways. The thing we have been talking about so far is more about how teaching about artificial intelligence, and I think that is very important. But we also have, of course, the possible use of artificial intelligence within education. Creating tools for teachers, for example, could be an interesting thing, making it easier for them to plan their teaching, follow up students' progress, and a lot of things we can see that artificial intelligence can help us with. And the workload on teachers are hard, so can we help them make their daily life more effective, saving some time for which they can use to interact with students instead of sitting by themselves planning and so on. So that is a possibility, of course, and there we still have a lot to figure out. I think is we can actually provide the students with tools that use artificial intelligence to improve their learning and making it very easy to adopt to different students' way of learning and thinking. But there is a good reason to be careful there, because at least the Swedish school system is funded by the idea that learning is something you do together with other people, together with your peers, together with your teacher, and what can be, if anything, can we replace that kind of human interaction with an interaction machine student instead, and we can gain something, but we lose something on the way. So we really need to find the balance in the school system, I believe.
So in that sense, how do you imagine would be the ideal scenario for interacting with machines? What things should humans do and what should machines do?
If I go back to the example of the teacher, I mean, if the students are supposed to do things. You could describe as training to master some skill. Then there could be one part that is actually done, the student and the machine. And the machine can be helpful for the student. It reacts very fast. It could give them new tasks to solve or things like that. But to keep the relationship between the student and the teacher, this should be something that the teacher can then easily get reports, so that the teacher can sort of discuss with the student, okay, here we see you have succeeded in this way, here we have the weaknesses, and the machine can tell us that there is weaknesses, but the teacher has to do that intervention from time to time, because I think it would be very boring for students to just interact with the machine, even if that was possible. And I think the complexity of the classroom and the interaction with all the other students, it's important also to keep that as an important task for the teacher to manage. But we can help the teacher a lot by using artificial intelligence, I think.
Coming back to the skills that need to be taught in relation to the digital world, such as programming, what do you think is the ideal approach to teaching?
I would say problem solving. That is the short answer. I think, and I think we have quite a lot of research that shows that if you can get the students to be part of the identification of a problem, preferably a real-world problem, then they put in a lot of effort because they get engaged. They own the problem, and that means that they. And if then the way of finding solutions to the problem includes digital tools, intelligence of different kinds, and things like that. Students will be very keen on actually learning that. If they don't have the skills necessarily, they will find and then the teacher will be helping out to, okay, you got stuck here in this problem-solving process. I can give you a hint on how you can proceed, things like that.
If you have to give some advice to developing countries which want to implement a strategy for digital education and an AI-led world, what would be the main points in which you think they need to concentrate?
My impression is that the problem in developing countries are twofold. One is that they lack often the infrastructure, not only when it comes to technology, but also when it comes to schools, and they don't have enough teachers and so on. And then I think, not that it would be the most ideal way of dealing with things, but then technology and artificial intelligence provide means to teach more kids, all of those who are not attending school. We could perhaps build some kind of light infrastructure for a school system, which use some technology to bring teachers through technology to the classroom in remote sites or things like that. And it could also provide a possibility to, but that requires a lot of infrastructural investments anyhow, because if you want all these kids that are not attending school or just attending school very limited, they could get help through the use of technology, but in order to be able to do that, they actually have to live in a place which is connected to the internet, perhaps, and so we have a lot of practical things, or there is a lot of practical things that you also have to solve. Even if the technology could be very helpful, if it's not possible to bring the technology to the place, then you're sort of still not solving the problem.
Is there anything else that you would like to add regarding education and AI?
Yes, when we developed our new curricula a couple of years ago, we also developed a national strategy for the digitalization of the Swedish school system. And one of the most important things, I think, is that we introduced a way of describing that digital competence we want the students to have, with putting the little word adequate digital competence, and that means that we expect our teachers and school leaders to themselves watch out what is happening, what is changing, what new technologies is introduced, and bring that into the teaching, at least the teaching about things, and that means that the steering documents like the curricula will be able to be constant over a number of years, a much longer period, because we expect every teacher and every school to watch out what is actually happening, what technologies do these kids meet in their daily life, and then sort of make or have the discussion. What does that mean for us in the school? You can take examples like this with fake news or something in social media. That wasn't around, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. Then the school system has to face that, because the students are facing it in their daily life, and they need tools to be critical about things they read and things like that. But we now don't know what will be around in 5 years' time or so, in the sense of channels for communicating and things like that. So having a combination of leading this from a national level, but also have a lot of trust in that teachers and school leaders are able to follow this. We can help them, of course, continuously, but we put a lot of responsibility actually to the basic school level.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.